The first of the apprentice knots is the square knot. It's for joining two lines of equal size or equal diameter. You'll take two separate lines, the bitter end of each. Laying it down, you'll take your left one and take it across and make a turn, and then take your right and come across and go over top. Draw it tightly. Both bitter ends must appear on the top of the knot. This one will not slip or tumble. Be careful when people demonstrate. This is imperative that both bitter ends show the top, because there's a knot called the thieves knot. You create a bite, you come underneath of the bite and back down in the center of the bite. It looks just like, if I keep my hands covered, it looks just like a square or reef knot. However, when my hands move away, notice the position of both bitter ends. This one is on the top and this is on the bottom. This knot will slip and tumble, as you see, will not hold. The second knot is the bowline. It's the king of all knots. It is used to put a temporary eye into the end of the line. It's also universally known as a rescue knot. You create the loop, give yourself enough line on the bitter end. You want to take an overhand loop away from you, creating a overhand loop away. Starts here. Take your fingers of your left hand and pinch. Take the bitter end, take it up through, and stop at this point to see what you have. You take the bitter end, dip it beneath of the working end or the standing end of the line, like this. Then bring your bitter end down into the hole that you created. Here, grab this portion in the working end and draw slowly. You'll notice the bitter end is on the inside, or an inside bowline. One more time. Take the bitter end, give yourself enough room to make the loop. Take your hand and you're going to make an overhand outside loop. You create. So you've got the loop. You take the bitter end, take it up through the loop. I'm going to pause a second so you can see. You take the bitter end and dip it underneath of the standing end or the working end, like this, and then come back down in here, grab the eye or the loop and draw it slowly. There is the bowline, the inside bowline. The third knot is called the clove hitch. You start out, for a right-hander, start out creating a loop. Take your left hand, pinch slightly, coming across the top, bringing the bitter end around beneath. Reach your hand in to the hole that you're creating by the second loop and drawing it slowly forward, creating the clove hitch. That is all there is to it. The second method that you can use in tying it is, if you're coming in to a dock and you're very proficient at it, you can take, we talked about inboard loops and outboard loops. You take your hand, turn one inside, one outside, then cross them. You're making the clove hitch. Drop it on top of the bollard or the piling and draw. When tying to a horizontal fixture, the same application applies. You drop the line over using your right hand, dropping it behind it, and reaching underneath and drawing it forward. Clove hitch. The fourth knot in the Apprentice series is the sheet bend. It is used for joining two lines of unequal diameter. Always use the larger diameter line to create your bite. Use your smaller diameter line to do your reeving. You create the bite using the larger line. Take your smaller line, take it underneath, and stop dip it underneath of your bite, creating the loop. Take the bitter end and pull it straight through, drawing it slowly forward. And you can see the tension. It looks similar to a bowline, but it is a sheet bend. Be cautious as you're drawing the knot up that you do not pull the line across, or you're going to wind up with a slip knot and the bitter end can pull out and the knot will fail. Remember, knots work by friction. So again, one more time, you create the bite with your large, and I'll show you in real time by picking the line up. I have it in my left hand. It's right-handed. I'm going to take this through, and I'm going to drape it back around, and I'm going to pull it back up through and reeve it over the top. Being cautious, pulling them together. There. The left-handed application is the same principle. I create the bite, come up through, bring it back, and pull it through. This is the left-hand version. The only difference is the bitter end comes out the other side. The fifth knot in the Apprentice series is called 2 half hitches. 2 half hitches is created by starting by taking an overhand loop, letting it tumble. That's 1 half hitch. Following in the same direction, you must stay in the same rotation or the same direction, bringing the bitter end through. You have 2 half hitches and you draw it tight. This is also used for making a vessel fast to a dock, pier, or moorings. I want to show you something here. If you can tie a clove hitch, you can tie 2 half hitches. If you look closely, 2 half hitches is nothing but a clove hitch tied on the working end of the line. Look very closely at this knot here between my hands. This is a clove hitch, but it is a separate knot because we have a loop around it, 2 half hitches, and it will slide up tight. You start out by giving yourself enough room with the bitter end for the working end or standing end. You will create a half hitch by taking and going around, and you will notice the half hitch. I went to my right side because I'm tying it right-handed. So I have a half hitch right here. I come back and I create a second hitch going in the same direction, thus forming 2 half hitches. The 6th knot for the ordinary requirement is the figure 8 knot. The figure 8 knot is used to prevent lines from running through block and tackles or shivs. It's a simple knot to tie. You create the bite in the line, give yourself enough room on the bitter end. You take a half twist towards you. You take the bitter end and you pull it through, and you have the figure 8. In teaching the figure 8 to beginners, a fun exercise is to simply have your students, either right-handed or left-handed, point to someone. Hey, you. Turn their hand upside down. Come here. Thusly explain. Take your bitter end, lace the line at the first knuckle of your finger, of your index finger, or your right hand. Make a full twist, drop it down, and there's your figure 8. The 7th knot for ordinary requirement is the cleat hitch. It's used to moor your vessel either alongside another vessel or to a pier or dock. Some piers have cleats, others have bollards. You start out by taking your working or bitter end, leaving yourself enough room to create the figure 8s. You'll come around, make a full loop underneath, take it across the top, around, and then turn the line and a half hitch, turning the loop towards you and drawing it slowly. There's no need to create more figure 8s on top.